Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. What we got today, we're going to go over the top baits for the month of August to catch more fish and hopefully bigger fish than you normally do. These are techniques that I use all month long and they will continue to catch fish in multiple situations. I'm going to go over 5 different techniques and I will give you a few baits in each category that kind of shines for me and the colors that I like to use, where I like to throw them, and what gear I use to throw these. We're just going to go ahead and get into it, get this started and try and speed it along a little bit because it might take a little bit to get through this. But we're going to start off with the Strike King Sexy Dog because that has quickly become one of my favorite walking topwater baits. This thing walks so well. It doesn't take a lot of work to get that thing walking back and forth, and you can do it kind of slow and it'll kind of stay in place a little bit. But you've got those 3 hooks, and I love that about a topwater is having those 3 hooks because that's just one more chance to get a hook in those fish's face. I'm throwing this on a moderate action, or a medium heavy power moderate action rod. This is a 7.4 13 fishing Fate, and I've got it on a Daiwa Tatula 100 on an 8-to-1 gear ratio. So as I'm walking that bait back, I can pick up that slack as I go along and be able to make sure that I'm ready to set that hook. But that moderate action will help me with that hook set to not rip those hooks out of that fish's mouth as much. So I like using a moderate action rod a lot of times on my topwaters, any of my treble hook baits, and it just seems to help me out tremendously. And I'm throwing that, I've got it on 14-pound fluoro, and I've been messing around a little bit with using braid as a main line here recently. So I've got a reel spooled up with 30-pound braid and just using a fluoro and mono leader, trying out different things and trying different ways. So I'll keep you guys up to date on what's working for me and how I'm doing that. But then I want to show you my other option this is my other option for topwater on the hard baits category, and that's downsizing that thing. And this is that little Lucky Craft Sammy, and I'm throwing that on 15-pound braid mainline with an 8-pound leader. And this is that new BFS setup that I got from Lew's, and I'm absolutely loving this thing. Got out the other day and caught a bunch of little white bass schooling and was able to wear them out with this thing. There was some small largemouth and just a mixture of stuff, but I've caught all kinds of fish on it already. Actually, the first time I took this thing out, I tied this thing on, tied this same lure on, went out, first cast I made with it, caught a fish. So it was a little like 6 or 7 inch bass, but I caught that fish, got him in the boat, and or got him on the bank actually. I was fishing from the bank, just took him out to test him. So I was able to land that fish first cast with that rod, and it just kind of course, helped give me confidence in what I was doing. Getting out and catching those smaller fish sometimes really, it's just kind of a reset and helps boost your confidence in what you're doing. Even though you're not catching big fish, being able to catch those fish, it even helps with your muscle memory of setting the hook and knowing when you're getting the bites and stuff. So I don't always just go out chasing giants. I go out just to enjoy catching fish and have a good time on the water. So don't be discouraged if you go out and you're not catching 5-pounders all day, because I wish I could go out and catch 5-pounders all day, but that's just not the way it works. So being able to get out and just have a good time and actually enjoy catching even these small fish makes a huge difference. But in this category, I wanted to give you guys a real good budget option. These things are $3.99, and this is a H2O Express. I think they're just called Topwater Specials, and these things walk extremely well. The only downfall for me on these is it has 2 treble hooks. It is a little smaller than that Strike King Sexy Dog, so having the 2 hooks isn't terrible, but I do like having the 3 hooks. But these things come with fairly decent hooks out of the pack for what they cost. They're not gonna last super long, but again, you're paying $3.99 for a bait versus $10 to $20. It depends on what brand you're buying. So that is a trade-off there. You can pick those things up at Academy Sports, online or in store. Academy is the only place that sells that H2O Express brand, but they do have some really good quality baits for the price that you pay for them. Next up, we're gonna stay on this topwater thing, and we're gonna go with the good old frog. This thing is chewed up. This is one of my absolute favorites. This is the Strike King KVD Sexy Frog. You can see I've got a few of them up here hanging in the white and blue color, and I just really like these things. Got more of them coming. And I like to use that one, but I have quickly grown to enjoy throwing this mock frog. And what got me throwing this thing is I'm doing that mock tournament, and they're doing a cast to catch video challenge. And you do your video, send it in, and you get entered in to win a bunch of stuff like I did with that Lose and Strike King package. So I've got that video sent in, but we'll see how that goes. I'm sure there's some people that's got some real good footage. I thought I had my camera running, apparently it had died, and I caught about an 8.5 pounder on this frog. And yeah, so my camera wasn't rolling, but then I turned around and caught like a little 2 pounder on it, 3 pounder, something like that. But that let me down a little bit when I found out my GoPro wasn't running. I've been having quite a bit of trouble out of them here lately, but that's the way it goes. Sometimes you just don't get that footage that you want. But I like to throw these hollow body frogs on a heavier rod. I'm throwing them in some gnarly cover a lot of times. And I'm not the type of person that goes out and throws a frog in open water like some people do. I've just got other baits that I prefer to throw in that situation, so this isn't one that I throw. But I really like this mock frog. It doesn't walk well in open water, so if you're looking for one that does that, I can't make this thing walk really good in open water. But in a mat or lily pad situation, you're fishing heavy vegetation, this thing, it wants to nose down a little bit, and that's one reason I don't like it for walking. But it noses down on those mats and kind of makes a big indentation, and I think that really helps trigger those bites and helps that fish to key in on where that bait is, so when he comes up and blows up on it, he gets it. And I did take and bend these hooks up a little bit to help with my hookup ratio. But I'm throwing my frogs on this Tatula 100 with 50-pound braid. I like that 50-pound braid versus the 65. I feel like it just comes through that stuff a little bit better than that bigger diameter braid. And this is the Tatula XT rod, and it is a heavy fast 7.4, so it helps to get those fish out of that cover, away from whatever's going to get you tangled up, and get them there so you can land them. One other option for throwing a frog, if I am in a little more open water, I've got some sparse grass or something, or I'm wanting to make a little racket, I throw these ribbit top toads, and it's just a little flapping frog. And it, you can buy, these come in like a 2-pack with the hook, or you can buy a pack like this that has, I think there's 3 in here. Yeah, this is 3-pack. So you can buy those, but these things right here have an excellent little action. You can cast them a mile, and they last a really, really long time. So that is another option. And then of course, your downsized option, you can go with that KVD, I think it's called a Bitsy frog, or this Booyah Pad Crasher Junior when you want to downsize that bait. So those are your options for that. Of course, my hard top waters, I'm not going to be throwing up in grass, but I'm going to be throwing down grass lines, across flats, rocky, any kind of points, anything like that where I think there's fish, and hope to trigger that bite down along docks and stuff like that. My frogs, I told you these will be in heavy vegetation, and these guys right here in a little more sparse vegetation, and sometimes even in a no vegetation situation where I've got some good overhangs and stuff that are really close to the water, and I can skip a frog up under there. I will do that. That's about the only open water application I use a frog for. We'll hit the jigs next. My favorite is a swim jig, and this is the Divine by 6 cents. This is in like a bluegill color, and I've got it paired up with that Strike King Rage Bug and that green pumpkin blue swirl, and that thing works really well. But of course you can take and put a little swim bait on the back of these things. They come through the grass really well. They come over limbs and logs and stuff really well. So I really like throwing this Divine Swim Jig. I've got several different colors of this, and this is definitely a good option. And then when you want to downsize it a little bit, I've got that Berkeley, I forget what this one's like. It's a finesse jig, but it's just a little smaller option. And then I'll get like those net bait Paca chunks, Paca crawls, and put on here, the little ones, and makes a good looking little jig. But then you have the hybrid jig from 6 cents, and it's got kind of a hybrid style head that can be swam or pitched into cover and come through all that really well. And you've got that heavy weed guard, and you can use your choice of trailer on these things. I'm throwing all my jigs basically on a heavy power fast action rod. In some situations I may drop down to a medium heavy, but not typically with a jig. And I'm going to be throwing that on anywhere from 30-pound braid to 50-pound braid. It depends on where I'm at, or if I'm going fluoro, I'll go 17 to 20 pound. And I'll be throwing that on one of my Tatulas more than likely with an 8-to-1 gear ratio, because when those fish hit, I want to be able to take that slack up as fast as I can and get that hook set, drive it home, and get that fish. Next up, we're going to go with crankbaits, square bills specifically. It's a good time to get out and throw some square bills on these flats, and I'm going to be going with either a bluegill pattern, and this is the Crush 100X by 6 cents, and this is the Crush 50. So I'm going to be going with a bluegill pattern or some kind of shad pattern. In those cleaner, clearer water situations, and then in a little bit dirtier water, I'll go with something like this chartreuse with the black back. I got that little bit of blue on the gill that shows up really good. Of course, you got premium hardware on these things, these sticky hooks. You don't have to worry about anything. And then when you're looking for that bigger, wider wobble or a little different action from your square bills, that 6 cents Axis, and that thing's got that big swinging metal bill on it, making all the racket. You got all those rattles in there, awesome colors, and again, good hooks, good hangers, and good split rings on these things, so you don't have anything to worry about. But if you're looking for one that has a bigger, wider wobble, that's the bait for it. Those square bills, you got that good hunting action. Bringing those things, you can throw them up in some laydowns, some brush, and bring them through pretty well. Any kind of, I like to bring them, if I can find some grass that is 2 to 5 feet below the water, below the surface, take that thing and tick the top of it. They come through that grass really well, and that's something that I like doing with them as well. And I'm going to be throwing those on the same rod that I throw my topwater on, is that 13 Fishing Fate. I really like that rod. It's a moderate action rod. You can feel these crankbaits really well on it, and I'm going to be using anywhere, depending on which one I'm throwing and where I'm throwing it, anywhere from 10 to 14, maybe up to 17 pound fluoro to get that bait down. If I'm wanting to get it down further, I'll drop down my line size, and if I'm just want to run it shallow, I'll keep that line up if I'm in a lot of gnarly cover. But I did want to give you another budget option here. So those 6 cents crankbaits, they're not cheap. I mean, they're like 11 bucks a piece. But this is one of the H2O Express crankbaits, and this is actually a swimming model. So it's a jointed bait. Good looking little bait, good paint on it. Got some decent hooks on it. 2 to 5 feet, tells you right there on the bill. But these little things are cool. Get out, it's a little different action than they're used to seeing. And again, this is like $2.99 or $3.99 at Academy. So that's a cheaper option to get out and be able to throw these crankbaits around and enjoy that bite a little bit. I'll be throwing them in any kind of laydowns, brush, any kind of wood cover, any kind of rocky points I can find, stuff like that. Find those schooling fish. when you're going down these grass lines, you might have a mile-long grass line and you won't catch anything for the first half mile. And then in 100 yards, you might catch 15 fish because they'll school up in that grass, and then you'll catch them. And then you might go another quarter mile before you catch another one. And when it's like that, when you get on that bite, you got to capitalize on it and have all these things at your disposal and ready to catch these fish. But that's one of my favorite ways to attack them, is out here on these grass edges. So next up, one that I really like throwing is an underspin. And this is the Owner Flashy Swimmer paired up with a Largo Shad by Storm. And that's in the Tennessee shad color. And if I want to upsize, I will go with the 4-inch or the 4.75. Or if I'm wanting to have a little more action to it, I'll go with that X-Zone Swammer. And just take one of these out real quick if you've not seen them. Let you see these things. You can see the action that these things have just holding them up. A lot of, that tail doesn't want to stay still. So they've got a really wide wobble to them, so you get a lot of action out of them. And sometimes it drives the fish crazy, sometimes they don't want all that action. So you have to throw one of these Largo Shads or a Typek or something with a little more subtle action. I like throwing these along those grass edges, along the top of that grass. And I don't really fish my underspins a lot near laydowns and stuff. I really like, sometimes I will, but down the sides of docks, pitching them up under docks and stuff, and being able to trigger those bites, those fish come out and just annihilate those things when they see that little bit of shimmer. And when I don't want, in a situation where I don't want that flash, I'll just go with the just a regular swim bait hook and just a bare swim bait sometimes. But usually that underspin does it for me. And I'll be throwing most of those on my medium heavy, fast action, that Lew's rod that I got. And I'll pair that up. I'll probably be throwing it on 12 to 14 pound fluoro as well. And then our last category is gonna be soft plastics, Texas rigged soft plastics specifically, because I like to flip and pitch and punch. And I'm not in the punching stage yet. The mats aren't quite there. And once we get there, probably end of the month, start of next month, I will go over my setup for that. But my number one is a Strike King Rage Bug in that June bug color. It just gets it done for me. And I've got it paired up right here on, get out of there. This is that new Lew's custom light, and I've got it paired up on here with a 3/0 hook and a 1/4 ounce weight. And I'm throwing that on, like, I think it's 21.5 or 22.5. That's that new Sunline All Might sinking braid. And I'm loving this stuff. That's something that I've really enjoyed using. I was having a problem where I was using a stouter hook than I needed for that rod, and I wasn't getting the hook set that I needed, so I was losing fish. So I swapped out to a lighter wire hook and I really upped my landing ratio a lot. So I will go over in another video, so this doesn't run over, kind of how you choose which hook, line size, and rod, and combine all that for your best option on landing a fish without overpowering it, bending out your hooks, or underpowering it, not being able to get that hook through their mouth. So we'll go over that a little later. But when I'm throwing those Rage Bugs, a lot of times I'm always using an EWG hook. But if I'm using a heavier rod, heavier line, I'm gonna throw this stout wide gap hook by 6 cents. And on my worms, I'm gonna throw a 5/0, because I'm throwing these big Zoom Mag 2s or the old Monster high zoom. And again, that June bug color. And I'll Texas rig that on a 1/4 ounce, 1/2 ounce, 5/8, 3/8, whatever it is. It depends on how quick I need it to get to the bottom of where I want it to go. If I'm fishing real heavy grass, which a lot of times I am with these worms, is I will peg that weight so it doesn't get tangled up in the grass. And you've got to experiment sometimes. Sometimes that weight being pegged helps, sometimes it hurts you. So you just got to kind of try different things out and see which one works for you. But next up, with this same category, I want to give you a budget option as well. And this is the H2O Express June Bug 10-inch ribbon worms. Little different June bug color. You got some red flake in there along with that green. But these things, it's a little denser plastic, so you'll get a little different action. But these things come in at like, I think again, $3.99, where those Zoom worms are anywhere from $5 to $7 a pack, depends on where you're buying them and what kind you're getting and all that stuff. So that gives you a little cheaper option to get out there, and these things work great. So it gives you a few different options. I like to try to make it where anybody of any budget can get out there and try and catch some fish. But I'm running long-winded again, so I want to take a minute to thank you guys for tuning in and ask you, if you're not subscribed to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. Hit that like button, hit that notification bell, and leave me some comments down below on what you think about all this stuff and what your favorite baits for the month of August are. Kind of go over, bounce some stuff off of me back and forth. If you've used any of this Sunline All Might, what you think about it, and anything of that sort. I just like having the feedback and chatting back and forth with everybody. Excuse me. Chatting back and forth with everybody and having these conversations. It's really fun, so I appreciate that. But we got some cool stuff coming up. We'll announce next week, we'll announce Friday who wins the prize pack that we're doing. If you hadn't got in on that yet, head back 2 videos ago and make sure you get in on that giveaway. And I think that's gonna be it. So I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Y'all have a good one.